Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Start out with roll call.
Lister
Here.
and Anderson.
Here.
And Lonigan.
Here.
Becker.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Okay. Let's read the public hearing notice and receive the staff report.
Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that an application will be received from the following persons for a variance of ordinance requirements. Darcy and Lyle, 1P, Lot 2, Block 1, Cliff View Edition, Section 9, Township 103, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 08085000, a Crescent Township. 1, variance of setback requirements to reduce side yard setbacks for an existing accessory building. 15.7 subdivision 1. Number 2, variance to allow an existing accessory building to exceed the height of the principal building on the lot. Section 29.14 subdivision 1 subsection 3. Variance number 3 to allow an existing accessory building to exceed 1,500 square feet and a door height in excess of 2 feet. Section 29.14 subdivision 1 subsection 5. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 27, 2023. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 204 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota 55921, or emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us. It must be received by Wednesday, July 19, 2023. Comments in regard to the petition received by this date will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Board of Adjustment prior to the meeting. Houston County Board of Adjustment by Martin Herrick, Zoning Administration, advertised July 17, 2023.
Okay, Darcy and Lyle Lemke. You want to step up here and tell us about your plan?
Sit here.
Well, we purchased this land, May, I believe, from her grandparents, as is. And the building's 50 years old and it needs fixing. It's a pole structure. So, but the door in it isn't very tall to get stuff in there, so it's got 12-foot, whatever sidewalls on it now, but I'll lose. I only have a 10-foot door and it can't get much in with 10 feet tall, so I just want to store stuff in there and use it that way, build it. And being 50 years old, I want to re-roof it and put some of the nailers on the pole type. They've been wet, dry so many times, you can see the discoloration and and it needs attention. So get the Coach boys were gonna doll it up for me and make it look nice and bring it back up to, so it's not an eyesore, but it's needs attention and and get the water away so it doesn't run under the floor.
What kind of floor does it have? What kind of floor?
Well, it had a cement floor, but it was all busted up.
Oh,
There was no reinforcing in it. Back in them days, I don't know if they believed in it, just pour it thick and all it,
Yep.
But with the back mix trucks in there, it's on 14 inches or more. Like tore it all out and then.
Are you gonna raise it now when you re-pour it so the water can't get in there?
Oh, yeah, I want to, yeah. Get some screenings in there. It's got all river sand in it evidently. The drainage on the upper side isn't right, so it's wet under the floor all the time, so that's part of the reason. That went, but it just needs attention. And over the years, they built a house here and they built a house there. You're not supposed to dump the water on your neighbor's land, but that's kind of what happens in a situation where you don't have a say over it. But anyway, that's got to be repaired and fixed. And we just want to make it look nice.
Seems like I read the roof is gonna be higher.
Yeah, we'll have to raise that up.
You're gonna raise both sides or just the peak?
The whole thing will have to come up in the air. And then we're just gonna make one side of the roof longer and put a little porch underneath it. With a
Okay.
little porch are on the backside, so you can shade back there. Enjoy it.
It's full of dry rot, so it's all gotta be,
It's gotta
so we
be,
might as well make it taller if we're gonna do
yeah,
all
we have to
that.
take it apart anyway to repair it.
Oh, you're gonna take the roof right off?
Gonna have to, yeah.
Do it right.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can fix it. Do it
Well, I
right.
thought somewhere I read in here, you're gonna put a sister thing on it.
That's my understanding is that you're basically gonna use like a sort of a cripple that you would glom onto the existing, but it would be higher. Is that? I guess when we were discussing.
Yeah, well, you have to, I mean, you have to, I'm gonna bring the sidewalls up if I can to compensate for an overhead door, because you lose 2 feet. You know what I mean? So get it up in here. So I have a,
How do you lose 2 feet? I'm confused.
from your track system and the springs and all that. Because your doors always hang down 2 feet from the ceiling. On a big overhead door.
But you're gonna take the roof off. You're not.
Yeah, well, we're gonna raise trusses and everything up on the poles.
Okay.
They laminate the poles.
So the
That-
sides are gonna be 2 feet higher. as
Yeah,
well.
Tim and Tom said that's no big deal. They can do that when they gotta tear it all apart anyway, so they might as well,
Okay,
you know, then it'll be fixed right. And
so you're gonna disassemble the whole shed?
not the whole shed, but piece by piece, it'll come apart and go right back together. You have to take one down, fix it, put it back up again. Right down the line.
On a situation like this, does he need a building permit when you remodel a building?
Yeah. there-
Okay,
there would be.
just asking.
Really? I thought as long as they didn't change the footprint and.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
footprint
but
is,
there is a,
Well, there
there is
is
a
the-
limit to how high. it-
Yeah.
Yep, yep, got it.
yeah, the footprint with the overhang will be bigger. Yeah.
And the Ready Bus Barns, how tall are those buildings?
Oh, they're way taller. Mine.
Cause they're
I
right,
built some of them over there, so I know about them. I know how tall Tom's buildings are with Joel. I built some of his bus barn and the mechanic shop stuff. I did that.
Any other questions from the board members?
Yeah, as I read this, it seemed to me that the door height was gonna be increased because you had to use those cripple trusses. Now you're saying you're taking the roof off and rebuilding again.
It has to be re-roughed anyway. That's all.
But-
gotta
Right,
come
I
apart.
understand, but now you're saying you're raising the sidewalls so that you can have a higher door.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the time, my understanding when we were talking about it was is you were gonna use basically either an additional truss or some sort of I would call it a cripple, something that you would add on, it would be in a higher elevation, that will effectively give you the additional.
That's exactly what we're gonna do, just the way you explained it.
But you said
How
you're
you're raising
gonna
the
take
sidewalk.
take the old trusses out.
No, he's
Well,
cutting it.
yeah, we'll have to unhook them and raise them up.
Yeah,
So we're gonna raise up the old trusses.
Yeah, we're so,
Well, you're basically gonna,
and re-bolt them back to,
Okay,
you got the existing one, add on, but you add on. creates a higher-
yeah,
higher profile.
The way I understood it, you got laminated column or a lot of laminated poles and you were gonna move the trusses up on the poles. Is that correct?
well, they're solid poles, but they're gonna be laminated on top, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
just
yep,
add it
that's all
on
you have.
to.
Cause you have
Alright.
plenty, you're adding,
Will that give you stability though, as far as how you're gonna bolt them, so you got strength up there when,
Like you're doing a knee brace.
yeah, there's a big knee brace and all that on there, yeah, all that's that way, yes.
but you're gonna take the old trusses off and get rid of them.
No,
no, you're gonna raise
no,
it.
I reuse all them are fine.
Well, I thought you said they were all rotted.
No, the cross members where the nails went through the, cause they're
Oh,
standing,
I see.
yeah,
Okay,
and
okay,
being the
I understand.
wet
that.
dry.
Yep, yep.
for 50 years, it's taken a toll on it that way.
The trusses are fine, but.
The trusses are fine, yeah, they've been,
It'd basically be the top cord of the truss. And then what do you call the cross pieces? Are those purlins?
purlins, and they all gotta get
They're
redone.
they're
That
like,
take,
because the metal, the sweating, the hot and cold,
right.
those can only take so much.
Mhm.
And they used to sometimes make it pretty thin.
So and I still understand this, you're raising the sidewalls
2 feet.
2 feet. And that's where you need the variance because it's not allowed, it becomes too tall.
basically, they're right, because your primary structure is supposed to be your highest structure. And this is an accessory structure that's gonna be higher than the primary structure, although it already is. But the thing of it is that this change will even add to that, so it's kind of like the easiest way is to just.
Yeah, there's a picture of it there on the,
Will address the fact that you're gonna, you're compounding, I mean, in the sense that a lot of this was done prior to the ordinance being in place previously, but now this activity is regulated by the law.
And that would be more of an issue if it was close to the house, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true, I mean, but we don't really make a distinction with. that
No,
in-
but I'm
in
just saying,
code. But right, I mean, we had one a couple months ago that was very simple.
right. Any other discussion? Okay, members out here, anybody got any questions? For what's going on up here? Okay. Any additional questions from the board? When do you gonna do this?
soon as my contractor's available, they're awful busy. They're the boys to get, so that's the ones I want to do it. I'm on the list around August, they told me end of August,
Okay.
hoping for that when they'll start.
How big a shed is that?
50 by 100.
Good size.
Which by today's standards would not be allowed in that area.
Right. Well, it's. Most of the reason why I bought the property was for the storage of that building too. So I want to fix it. And make it look nice.
Okay, if there's no more discussion up here, we'll have the findings of the fact.
Number one, the variance the variance request is in harmony with the intent and purpose of official controls. Staff analysis, the accessory building is allowed in the residential district and is allowed to be maintained. Maintaining the building and improving its functional use is an efficient land use that minimizes new development and is a goal of the comprehensive land use plan.
Okay. We vote on that?
Yeah.
All right,
You want me to do a voice roll call or do you want to do it?
go ahead and roll call.
Ken Visker,
I,
Ken Anderson,
I definitely agree with staff analysis on that.
Wayne Rodigan,
Aye.
Larry Hapner,
Aye.
Frank Mahoney.
I,
Number two, there are practical difficulties in complying with the official controls and the proposed use of the property is reasonable. Economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties. Staff analysis, the maintenance of the roof requires triple trusses, which will be higher than the existing structure. The existing structure, which was in place prior to the regulations, exceeds the current size and height standards, so the roof maintenance requires a variance. Purchasing additional land to address the setback also requires a loan sell.
Could we just do a voice? Can we all say?
Yeah.
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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thanks.
Number three, the variance requests are due to special conditions or circumstances unique to the property or not created by the property owner. Staff analysis, the condition and age of the structure create circumstances where upgrading it is reasonable and needed for it to survive.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carries.
Number four, the variances cannot be alleviated by a reasonable method other than a variance, and the minimum variance which will alleviate the practical difficulty is sought. Staff analysis, the board may find that the variance related to the existing accessory structure is the only way to feasibly resolve the setback and size restrictions, and that the variances are the minimum variance that would alleviate the practical difficulty of limited buildable space, and size restrictions for accessory structures in the residential district.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna oppose it only because by adding the extra 2 feet, I'm not sure it's, from my perspective, it's a necessary part of that whole renewable project. So, and then again, you're exceeding a variance, so that's just an explanation for my objection.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 5, the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality nor substantially impair property values or the public health, safety, or welfare in the vicinity. Staff analysis, granting the variances will not have a negative impact on the criteria listed above. Additionally, the accessory structure is not anticipated to have any effect on the above criteria. The septic addition will be an approved design and permit.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Number 6, the request is not a use variance and shall not have the effect of allowing any use that is not allowed in the zoning district. Permit a lower degree of flood protection than the regulatory flood protection elevation, or permit standards lower than those required by state law. Staff analysis, the granting of the variances for the setback, size restrictions, and door height in the residential district does not conflict with any restricted uses. There is no mapped floodplain on the parcel. There are no known state standards applicable to the request.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay,
I'll make a motion, we accept the findings as presented. Excuse me. I'll second that motion.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. So. Any further discussion on the motion?
We don't have a
We don't
motion
have
to
a
approve.
motion on there, so, I'll make the motion to grant variances. You recommend it.
We
We want to
You want me to read the?
we want people from,
Right.
did we talk to them?
We already did.
Did we?
It was asked for,
Okay. Sorry.
me to read the condition.
Yes.
Sorry, the variances, yes. Number 1, variance of 6 feet to reduce side yard setbacks for an existing building. Number 2, variance of 7 feet to allow an existing accessory building to exceed the height of the principal building. Number 3, variance of 3,500 square feet to allow an accessory building to exceed 1,500 square feet. Number 4, variance of 4 feet to allow a garage door height exceeding 10 feet.
I'll make the motion for that.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Now fun parts. Okay, so that would be the end of the
Yeah, and our next one, withdrawn. So,
Lyle and Darcy Lemke. Done with that one. Well, we're either gonna sit here 20 minutes or we could do the, if you want, the meeting.
I think we have to wait till it's.
Being it's advertised, I would suppose we
Yeah,
better
I
wait.
think we do have to wait.
Okay, I'm just throwing
We
that out
can't
there.
go early, but we can do the minutes.
Mhm.
The other.
Okay, so. Call the meeting to order, what are we gonna,
I move we
Is there a
accept the
motion?
minutes.
from the previous meeting.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes. I move we approve the minutes.
Is there a second to that?
I second
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried.
The person pulled his request today for the second meeting, so the delay. Yes. Happened.
Hmm.
Called me. It's kind of a unique situation in that they really have no place to put a drain field in. And so they were actually looking at going between two buildings. And they started to test the smell to see if that would even work. And we did what's called a perk test. And the perk test came up 80 gallons per day. Was all it would take. So it was like, that's not looking too good.
a perk test still acceptable to,
It's certainly part of your evaluation. A lot of
all
times,
soil tests.
if you get in a situation where people aren't agreeing with what the soil really is, the perk test can be used as a method to kind of define,
A second opinion.
right, that it can be the supplement, and it gives you a hard number. So, but yeah, that it's a pretty tough set of circumstances because the other areas that they were looking at start to get into floodplain. They start to get into all these situations, and a long time ago, they thought they were going to be able to work with the neighbor's system. Neighbors went ahead and built a new system, but it wasn't sized to match it up.
In a situation like that, could they excavate and then replace the?
That's what they were talking about,
Okay.
but you still have a situation with the ground below. So you treat the water, but then you still have to discharge it. But when you get to the point where we'll only handle 80 gallons per day below.
Well, but if you put in more suitable soil,
There's a.
You're still getting to the point where
to that.
it's still mounding up, so.
well, I know how mounds, but in this case, could they, I'm just asking, could they excavate
This is,
that unsuitable soil and replace it with suitable soil?
there just is too much.
It's too much.
It's just,
Mound won't fit.
yeah, I mean, it's just, that you're treating the soil on top. But then, once you got the discharge water going through that is treated, it's still a case of where's it gonna go? And in this case, it's like 80 gallons in a day is not much. So it's like, they're like, no, that wasn't what we thought was gonna happen. And so that's exactly what they were trying to do is, they would put in a non-conventional system that they would excavate and do this work. And it's like, boy, that just isn't.
Where do they come up with this 80 gallons a day by the size of the house or what?
The 80 gallons per day ultimately relates back to, it's 150 gallons per day for two people.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a rating based on,
The number of people in the house?
yeah, and
Okay,
so
okay.
basically, the minimum design these days is for a 2-bedroom house.
Okay,
So 1 bedroom is assuming 2 people, so it's 300 gallons per day is the minimum. So you start to size your septic tanks. Some of them that start at that situation and then they go. That doesn't mean you can't do something as an alternate, but what we were proposing with this, and we wanted you guys to vote on it, is because it's a pretty unique set of circumstances with this administrative variance to allow this. This doesn't land in the nice 70, 80 category of the normal criteria that we would do. So.
Does the county have a requirement that systems that be tested or tested at the time of sale?
Not really. I mean, a lot of counties do.
Yeah, and I didn't know if Houston County did or not. They don't?
I mean, indirectly, you kind of do because the next person comes back and usually they want to modify the system. And then it's like, well, then you're caught that way, but it's still not the same.
It's not triggered by a sale.
Well, some of the banks do, don't they?
There could all be all kinds of loan.
Right, but the county doesn't require.
We were just talking about the Neves situation. And how unique it is and how tough it is, and it came back with not much flow.
Yeah, and then
potentially have another option, so they asked the table. See if that is actually. Sorrow.
Could they build a holding tank?
Yeah. Holding tanks.
Concerned, I mean, we do a lot of holding tanks. And I'm concerned about- Think we could. I mean, so, it's-
Yeah, that's the public. So,
Maybe his Crystal Valley property is better,
How do you mean abused?
better place to put.
Basically over.
You mean not pumped properly? Oh, and then just run it out on the ground.
Yeah,
Okay,
straight pipe.
I had one of those. Had one.
Oh.
Didn't know it until I moved in.
and I know- not that they're a whole- project at the same time. So the comp plan passed today. Updated comp plan. And so now we're coming to the point where we probably be looking at. So I guess I just want to know, if you guys have started to think about it. Okay, think about maybe what variances you see a number of, that maybe just, you know, some of these areas like the lot one, I don't know if that's changed much since went into effect for 20 years ago. So some of these things would be like just things on that either need to clarify or we need to kind of update to fit our evolving world now, or just something, whatever you guys think of.
Reviewing the bylaws. Reviewing the bylaws of the land use plan.
Well, I think ordinance.
Can you send us a list of ordinances that you think we ought to take a look at, or ways that things need to be updated? I mean, it's hard for us to just, hard for me to just
Yeah.
come up with ideas. Help me.
Fascinating that to something, I mean, you guys even have bring proposals, but. You just want to run ideas, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it in future meetings here. Kind of or if anything kind of random you have, just to give us time to do research.
ever heard of I can't think of what it is, PUD? It's a subdivision where you have the houses,
The cluster
yeah,
standard.
yeah, I don't think there's anything in our ordinance about that, is there?
Just that we don't usually have a lot.
Okay,
We kind of evaluated that. We're starting to do it. We had the DNR look at that on this issue with the Pine Creek subdevelopment that's starting to build. We had them take a look at that. As is, they felt it did not apply, but in a number of situations where you get. What did you call them? Sort of like,
I think it's limited to the shoreline district.
yeah,
I think it was planned unit development.
right, but I'm just trying to think of the kind of like the units that you'll see, there's sort of like. Groups of 5 houses or 7 or 8, and then. You know,
And they share utility.
Shoreline district right now, is at Hidden Bluffs Campground. And potentially using it there, because they were proposing some cabins and different things, so that's kind of where we talked about it, but I'm not familiar with it. I'll look it up.
I know that come up when we were struggling with horse track. The addition, racetrack, that's what it is. And then they come up with that, 5 houses and they're not 100 feet apart, but they're much closer. And they share all the utilities.
That's one of the concepts is, right, is that they're being a little more efficient.
Mhm.
Did they do that?
What's that?
Did they do that with
No,
racetrack?
no.
I think that's a good idea. You probably, no doubt, I know you know more about what could be of interest to us. So we would have a chance to get back to you on our thoughts.
Plan to come or bring it at the formal agenda.
Be better if you could throw it to us sooner, so we have a chance to look at it before we discuss it.
But yeah, if there's something that jumps out of you, absolutely. Or even if this gets it started and it goes some other place, that's good too.
Those stories are saying.
Ken Anderson can put up on the video all about his trip.
Yeah, it's a
For 2
bunch of
months.
trip.
How much money he made in the boat gambling on the way over.
Oh, did you?
Sweden.
I'm not half Norwegian, but I take those.
That was a good trip.
You took the, you took a,
We were, like, it was a good,
but I mean, you took a boat over, but.
we flew over, flew to Bergen. We had I'm a part of the Learn Singers.
The what?
The Learn Singers already for it.
Oh,
We had concerts there and stuff like that.
so you.
Well, we had a good time.
You've gotten a little funny that maybe like this, no?
Very few of us knew how to continue that. It was interesting. So, most of those walls.
Oh, yeah.
So that knows that's how we're done.
Right. Yeah.
And the buildings are so much like, you see pictures of Rothschild, things, so they're all out. But it's all the Sweden, Russia, and Poland, all, you know, 400 years, 600 years.
I can never go stay.
Yeah.
People.
Well, one minute, we went to 1 minute. And I could see 15 minutes on his way. The other two could have been sank right away.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have enough width for the ballast. And the height. And we were red, it was 100%.
Really?
The whole ship was big and zero.
Those things are. I. They all.
Oh, yeah.
People are pretty. Engineering. You didn't take any pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's pictures.
Well, I got it.
Otherwise, digital cameras, you can take out of this thing.
It's the king and queen of Sweden.
Oh, no kidding. To be like you to your cat. So
We just happened to be there. The celebration. 50th year. Is,
you say you're invited.
so, you know,
Yeah.
and I just, clicked, and I got a good one.
We have an old newspaper from. Classifieds, it says wanted, housekeeper, no Swede.
This is.
Oh, wow. This is all. Right. Yeah. Out of the woods looking for the right. Yeah, I can see. Right. Yeah, that's, it's just, it was just amazing to see how those ships. Yeah. Just a really, we had a really good stuff.
Mhm.
This is 2000.
Oh, yeah, we can find it down there.
All of the township files.
Oh, did you?
So he mentioned it and I went and got it.
Is that right?
But what it comes down to is it's like we're trying to find some information. For how this really is. And he would claim certainly look at the rest of township. What do you? Yeah. We went. It wasn't so much work.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15 feet. Yeah. I've been there 30 times. It's supposed to.
Is everything searchable?
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
You like crap.
We're on going here about.
The one that I like the best. Either. It's a lot of people stuff. People need spirit.
Yeah.
It is not.
You can see regions and people need to shut it up.
We have.
Yeah, you gotta know what the standard was then. You know, I discovered how do we now determine whether how a parcel is whether it's not homestead, but agriculture or residential. How do we?
Definition. Kind of is. They're very on before acts. You're showing something. Well, it's not a being. Live farms. I mean, it's like machine.
Yeah, well, and how do you know how they are, what are the designations?
Well, I mean, the designation by.
Well, I mean,
Something like that.
yeah, well, and if I remember right, there's a designation on the internet site. Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
that doesn't
But
they never did.
well, and they're not consistent with,
Just the guy.
yeah, yeah. How do you?
Here we go, call a meeting to order. Let's have roll call first.
Ken Bisker,
Here.
Ken Anderson,
Here.
Wayne Romigan,
Here.
Larry Haffner,
Here.
Here,
Okay, did you read the public hearing notice and
yes.
staff reports?
Notice of public hearing, please take notice that an application was received from the following persons for a variance of ordinance requirements, Jeff and Julie Seeley. The northern half of the northwest quarter, southwest quarter, and southern half of the southwest quarter, northwest quarter, and parts of the northern half, northeast quarter, southwest quarter, section 18, township 101, range 4, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 0701010001. Jefferson Township, variance from non-conforming use requirements, section 9, subdivision 3, and the one dwelling per quarter section requirement 14.2 subdivision 1, subsection 4. The hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 6:10 p.m. on Thursday, July 27, 2023. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us. It must be received by Wednesday, July 19, 2023. Comments in regard to the petition received by the state will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Board of Adjustment prior to the meeting. Houston County Board of Adjustment by Martin Herrick, Zoning Administration, advertised July 17, 2023.
Okay, so Jeff, Julie Seeley, you want to step up here and tell us what you got?
Yes, thank you very much. You like us to take a seat or?
You can take a seat if you like. Just stay.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jeff Seeley. This is my wife Julie Seeley. And we are here asking for a variance, so we can build a small home, actually replace an old dilapidated dwelling home, whatever it's called, with a newer version to, obviously for our use, it would have the benefit of nicer aesthetics and property value. So in 2013, the prior owner, Jeff Eastman, applied for a variance to build a dwelling and a shop. And there's argument on whether or not the dwelling was part of it. And it was. The public record shows that the posting or the notice actually was for a dwelling and a shop. And I don't think anyone can argue that there's actually a dwelling on that property because the structure does not meet any of the definitions of a cabin, a manufactured home, or any of that nature. It has the modern utilities, including electricity, water, sewer, air conditioning, heat, gas, everything. So as it stands, I know there was a mention that that is not a dwelling, and I don't understand that because if it's not a dwelling, then somebody could offer an explanation of what it is because it doesn't meet the definition of anything else. So we want to replace that dwelling. The prior owner was given that and built those structures. Since 2013, as was explained to me, there was some redrawing of the quarter lines, if you will. And what happened is apparently the Danielson property was shifted enough to be in the same quarter as my property. Now, that was after the original or the first owner received the variance. So if that was the case, that house was moved into that quarter after we already had a building on that property. So in that quarter, we were the first, okay? And it was because of the redrawing of the lines, as my understanding, as I was told by Mr. Herrick, that we're in this situation. So, one of the things we did, I don't like spending money and losing money, okay? So before we ever spent a penny on design, now we have to spend money to get the building plans, right? We have to hire a designer and so forth. Before we ever did that, we had at least 4 conversations with Marty. And on one, we specifically discussed the density requirement of the quarter. And he told us that we were the only one, so it is open. And actually I turned to Marty and asked him to confirm that. Because I'm more than happy to have him confirm that.
Well, okay, I guess the best response I have is a letter that was sent May 24th or 28th that brought up the issue of the quarter, where we asked, do you have any additional information to counter that in
Yep.
writing there, that's that letter.
I understand that, and let me address that. So in January, we talked. And that was a specific discussion that we had. At that point, I had not spent any money hiring an engineer or designing this building. I wasn't going to if it was going to be a problem. Then on March 8th, given the fact that we were told it wasn't going to be a problem, on March 8th, we submitted the permit. 10 weeks later, 2.5 months, we still have not heard from your department. And we stopped in. And Marty was in. And this is 2.5 months after we applied it. And that is the first we heard after we've spent thousands of dollars on design. Under the impression it was not an issue, there wasn't a density issue. 2.5 months later, that should have never taken 2.5 months, first of all. We should have been notified right away. In fact, we should have been notified before we ever hired an engineer, because we took the time to have at least 4 different conversations. And one was specific to the density. And again, Marty, you're pointing to a letter on May 24th. I'm talking January of 23. So that conversation happened. Julie was available. She was there, or she was on the phone, I should say. So she can confirm that. And all I'm asking is for Marty to confirm that he actually had that conversation. And
You have to look back.
okay, well, it did happen. So for that reason alone, I moved ahead and incurred thousands of dollars worth of design expenses because I need the designs to submit the permit. Not to mention the erosion, the septic, the permit fees, all those items. And now I'm out all that money, even though there was an assurance that it was not an issue. So the county basically pre-approved this through your office and by extension, the board. It should have never been rejected at that point. So that is why we're bringing this forward. The lines were moved. Oh, and by the way, when I bought it, it was your local attorney, that Hamill and Murphy, that was the closing attorney on it. It was Whitetail Properties, who was a realtor. The seller was Jeff Eastman. They presented us all the information on the variance and told us, yeah, there was a feedlot variance, and told us it was buildable, as evidenced by the fact that there was already a dwelling and structures that do not meet the definition of any of your other structures, cabin, manufactured home, any of that. Permanent structures on it. So the entire process went fine. It went smoothly until May 24th. Like I said, 2.5 months after we submitted this application. And of course, months after we incurred all these expenses based on an assurance that It didn't have a density issue. So that's why we're bringing it forward. We want a variance to allow us to build this. It is going to improve the property. I understand. Oh, and how is this different than the examples that were given in the packet saying these were rejected? Well, number one, we took the time to have pre-meetings and have this, maybe not officially, but unofficially pre-authorized before we spent any money. Two, we have buildings there already. All it's going to do is improve the looks of it. The structure that's there is only going away if I replace it with a nicer one. And it's not even that much bigger. It's only 150 square foot larger than what's there. So the other properties that were rejected because of this, I think were very different circumstances for those two reasons, not to mention that it was at one point a variance was given to build a dwelling. And you can look back at the posting. It specifically says dwelling on it. So that's my case. I wanted to bring it in front of you for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
I got a
is there any
question for you.
questions?
When I looked through the minutes from back in 2012 and 2013, you mentioned that the county had changed the survey marker. Is there any documented proof from the county that they changed the survey?
I'm gonna turn it over to Marion.
Well, and I'll go to, I think Eric Schmidt is our county surveyor. And.
Could you answer that?
County has never surveyed that line. The quarter section line is established and fixed on location. I suspect that any lines that are all survey line conversation are actually GIS lines or parcel. Those are beacon lines, and they were a best guess drawn in the late 90s without having that survey. I prepared a map, I guess, a couple of weeks ago from Marty, I don't know. But that shows the green line were the what was 2013.
Do we have that, Marty?
Yes,
What page?
it's page,
34?
6.
Page 6 or 30?
6.
I got you. So the green lines are what?
The green lines were as it looked in 2013. And at that point in time, these still aren't surveyed. These are just an approximation of that. Remember, someone needed to be in the website. We're a disclaimer and agree to the idea.
Yep.
Those lines do not constitute a survey. They do not constitute an indication where property costs are. Only a graphic. Also, the aerial images, this going on this map, on this. I believe that the house physically moved locations. I think that Mr. Sealy is describing change. And even the 2013 lines are drawn after the house. Parcel is shown entirely north of the lines. Would know that property line. The deeds for the Danielson property going way back always indicate that they are.
Do all your properties have a legal description which shows which quarter they're in? That's what I
I've
thought.
got it. I've got it.
Unless you're like a subdivision.
Yeah, but I mean, anything like this would show which quarter it's in.
He just said that.
Yeah.
So to look at that further, this is exactly what I told you is what I was told. That the quarter lines moved by Marty. And he can confirm that. Maybe he misunderstood it. I don't know. And he
If I-
went back
if I-
and talked.
if I steered you wrong. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to do that. But
I've got one
Um,
question.
I was
the-
also asking Eric. The.
Eric's got the floor. Eric? You want
I'm
to step
interested,
up here?
I'm interested in the green line.
Yep.
My view of that is old property fences.
What we're not taking into consideration when that green line was drawn.
It wasn't,
No,
how did they draw it?
I think they made a wild guess halfway between known locations.
Sure, good
But-
question.
I would agree.
That some people drew on, drew these maps in 1999, 2000, I think that project.
Okay, all right,
And we're very slowly trying to improve these.
but a lot of that was old line fences.
I don't think so.
No,
Okay,
the green line doesn't, that's someone just put it on this.
On a computer.
It wouldn't go
Right.
through the.
all
I
right.
mean, you go in the Beacon maps, and I was looking at Spring Grove, and it's right smack through with some, the property lines are right in the middle of the house.
Which one, the old, the green or the blue?
There's all, I mean, this is old ones.
The green or the blue goes through
The
the.
green, they're so far off.
Some are good, some are reliable. There are places by Muddy Creek that are
Okay, I see.
probably around 300 feet.
But the simple fact is that this Danielson property is in that quarter complete.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the green line was a beacon line that doesn't represent the actual lines of the property.
Correct. I do have recent survey evidence, kind of coordinates and mathematical information from surveys that have been done, I guess, in the last 15 years or so. And I use that information to come up with the blue line. I did not survey the blue line. That is just a better guess.
But the legal description for the Danielson property indicates that they're in that quarter.
And I can read that to you now. The most recent Danielson deed. It was a quick claim. I didn't really do much title research. I don't know what they're doing with this back and forth between Elizabeth Cleese or Elizabeth Danielson and Francis Curtis Danielson. But the legal description at the end reads, the land described herein being located in the south half of the north half of the southwest quarter of section 18. Township 101. Is that what we're looking at? Yeah.
So because that is obviously not the layman's expertise, you have an office that's here to help us when we go in and say, can I build? And it is their job to understand this and figure it out. Because obviously, I don't think you would expect the layman to know what he just read. This northeast, the southeast, the southwest, the west, quarter. So that is exactly why we had appointments before we ever committed to any costs or building to make sure that there wasn't an issue. So if this was cleared, then it should have been told to us at that time. Because we did seek the help of the county. We were the only building in that quarter. Specifically told that. And for that reason alone, this variance should be granted because I moved ahead based on that. And incurred thousands of dollars worth of costs, and now I'm out that money. And I mean, I relied on the expertise of this county.
There was also a variance that was granted to build a dwelling.
Describe
On
this
that
dwelling.
site.
one.
What we intend to build,
No,
what's
no.
currently.
No, the one that's there.
Okay.
Because
So-
it doesn't ever give any, there was never permission to build a dwelling. There was only permission to build this
Well,
building with a 900 foot dwelling within it. So there was never any permission to give, to build a separate dwelling. So what is this?
well, that can't be true because it's only 750 square foot, the shop building. So you couldn't have a shop building plus a 900 square foot
Well, I'm just
dwelling
talking
inside.
about what was permitted.
So the prior,
Describe the building. to me.
yep, it is a old trailer that was pulled in, pulled the wheels off, the hitch off, and then the sides torn out and built out on both sides to make a cabin. Utilities, probably the kitchen and so forth. And the sides moved with a separate furnace and air conditioner setup. Utilities.
I have a question. I thought this permit was granted, it was a whole shed with living quarters in it.
No, it just says within it, a 900 square foot. A full shed with a 900 square foot well. Each. 10.
I would be happy to put the dwell inside that, expand the footprint of the existing shop as compromise and put the dwelling in.
That's not the issue for me. No, the
I read it. I don't know what was authorized. And a square foot dwelling.
within.
Me. Dwelling. So
Here it
is that where it came from then that the variance allowed? It says illegal building, illegal dwelling is what it says in the minutes of the 2013. You see it on page 10 there?
Yeah, what was the outcome of this 2013 thing?
It was approved.
Where do you see that?
It's in there.
You look at the. Ultimately,
15.
building permit says for a job. Garage or something like that.
But it
That-
doesn't say
that would-
dwelling.
It doesn't say dwelling in that.
It was advertised as a
Sorry,
dwelling.
Amelia had something.
Small one?
Bathroom.
Oh, okay.
I thought I read that someplace.
So the minutes say dwelling, the posting says dwelling.
Oh, it
We
says here illegal dwelling. That's
No,
what
it said the prior owner had an illegal, he was gonna tear it down and replace it with a legal dwelling. So all the minutes from that time period show, and the posting show it was a dwelling. It's now people, 12 or 10 years later, are saying, well, it wasn't a dwelling. Well, how do they know? They weren't here. I wasn't here. All I can do is look at the minutes and say, he said in your minutes that I'm tearing down an illegal dwelling and replacing it with a dwelling. And you guys, you may not have been on board, I don't know, the board approved it.
I'm not convinced of that. I think what I read was that there was an effort to build a building with a dwelling inside the building, whether it was 900 square feet or what. I don't know what they finally approved, but it was obviously a septic system was only approved for the pole shed, right? There was no dwelling built.
And a garage can have a bathroom.
Right, exactly. But there was no, was there a permit approved for a septic system for a dwelling?
Meaning how a multiple bedroom, bigger, larger floor.
Do you have a copy of that there?
Yeah.
Maybe you should read it.
Bedrooms, 2 bedrooms is the minimum, design standard for, any kind of structure. But it's not, there's no shed with.
And it was just a holding tank, not a septic system. Okay.
So again, my concern, I'm, okay, if you want to reject it, I mean, okay, I get it. But through extension of your office, I've incurred thousands of dollars worth of expenses because of discussions where I was assured there wouldn't be a problem, which is exactly why I did that, to avoid this situation. So I'm going to reverse this. If you went through the due diligence to meet with the appropriate officials before you incurred anything, and you were assured you were the only one, and there's nothing, and the feedlot variance was already taken care of, and you were assured it's fine, go ahead and do your designs. And we hired the engineer and got the designs for the permit. And all of a sudden, months after you submitted this permit, months, almost, it was over 2.5 months, you were told, oh, I'm sorry, we aren't going to give it to you. What would you do? How would you feel? Is that treating you fair?
I've got a couple questions. What are we trying to determine if that structure that is there,
We're trying to get at.
is that a dwelling? And you should be able to replace it,
Yes.
or are we trying to decide if it was and is in the corner?
It's the
What-
latter.
The latter. Wait,
We're
no,
trying to
it's the first.
decide.
It's the order is, they're requesting a variance to the quarter.
Yes.
And in that. the fact
So-
that
so we're
there's
not-
already another
So we're not, it's not disputing, it's in the corner, or it's two dwellings in the corner.
It's the question of the density in that order.
We don't agree on whether or not it's the first or second, or that there is.
It's still,
So,
it comes down to the density question, which is a use variance, which is.
but if there's a dwelling, shouldn't I have the right to update it, upgrade it, remodel it, replace it? I already have a
That's what
dwelling.
I'm
If
trying
it
to
was
decide.
authorized by the county at one time. I think that's an argument, but I don't see any place where that mobile home was authorized.
Well, I do.
Well, show us.
It was in the minutes that there's a dwelling.
There
I
was
mean-
an illegal dwelling.
The prior owner, prior to Jeff Eastman, was replacing an illegal dwelling with a legal dwelling.
Did they do that,
Yes.
Marty?
Don't believe that they did.
If it isn't a dwelling, then tell me what it is. Because it doesn't meet the definition of a cabin or a manufactured
I'm not talking
home
about the
or
mobile home. I'm,
anything.
I didn't see,
Well, the 2013 is a structure that has a bathroom
Yep.
and it has some amenities. I mean, does that make it a dwelling? Not necessarily.
well, I want to know whether it was authorized or not. by the county.
The only thing that I can point to was the ultimately the building permit and what was designated as the building permit was given, and it said shop garage.
Well, you can point to the minutes too, that says dwelling.
Well,
There's
he's
evidence of both.
He's talking off.
Page 15.
Yep, there's evidence of both.
The variance.
I think it's important too, that a very, there's a number of things we look at when we review our permits. We look at water, wetlands, shoreland, floodplain, slopes, the density, soil. There's a mine setback, septic, it's buildable lot. There's a number of different things. When they reviewed that variance, feedlot variance, that was one component of it. That may have been granted. But when it came down to actually reviewing the permit, we have to look at all of these things, and that's when it was determined that density was not met. And so, yes, that was granted, but that doesn't get them everything.
Well, and those would have also been granted for the shop garage. No, they wouldn't, yeah.
Which goes exactly to the point of why we had that specific conversation. And was told, you're clear to, with that regard.
Jeff, the odds of me saying you're clear are pretty slim. I mean, that,
Come on, Marty.
I'm enough of a bureaucrat that as a general rule, I don't use terms. like that.
Julie, what did he say?
I just, we were sitting in my husband's office, you were on speakerphone and we were looking at Beacon and not having a good understanding of how the quarter worked, and you were explaining it to us. And you looked at it closely for a while, and then you said, no, it looks like there's nobody else in your quarter. Is what you told us.
I also, if I said that, I'm not sure that I may have been in error, but I also made comment to the fact that I'm asking Eric, our surveyor, to give a definitive map.
2.5 months later, after I incurred $30,000 worth of expenses.
That was way back in
That was January.
January.
So if you did it in error, that's fine. Then maybe the county reimbursed me for my expenses. If it was an error.
Strikes me that we
Here's
have.
what I have to say.
Okay,
You might have jumped the gun.
how so?
When you was talking to Marty, we don't know exactly what that conversation was. But maybe you got confused
Oh, no.
and you jumped the gun and maybe should have held off, because this is a big investment.
Wait a second, I can't hold off because I need to pay an engineer to design the buildings to submit the permit. So how do I hold off on the cost? You're putting the cart in front of the horse all of a sudden, when your process has the money going out for the design before I can submit the permit. So I did my due diligence.
We did not have the designs
We
built
didn't spend a
made
dime until,
after our conversations that said, no, you're the only one in the quarter. And I remember saying, so that means that nobody else could build in that quarter.
But didn't you question that house that was?
let me ask you this, why would I? I'm a layman. I
don't know what.
don't even know how to read it. I'm a layman. I went to your expert.
Excuse me just a second, but
Another key point on the timing of the application. It was paid May 10th. That's when we deem the application is complete, and that's when the timing starts.
The check came way before that. We started this conversation in January, and then I don't have the exact date, but I submitted the final, once we had all the plans, was in March when it finally got fully submitted, and the check was mailed at that time.
I have a question
Sure.
for Mike. Oh, I'm
Okay.
interrupting
Oh, go
somebody.
ahead.
Do we as a board have the authority to grant 2 dwellings in a quarter, or in other words, 2 houses in a 40, the same 40?
I think
Do we as a board have that authority?
I believe you do.
that's a use variance, isn't it?
That's a use
But
variance.
it
that would
would
have
go
to be
back to,
the planning.
in terms of, does it conflict with Minnesota rule? Yes. Do you have the ability to deviate from that? I asked external counsel on that. about whether you can or not, and they basically said. I can show you what they wrote, but it's like potentially you might.
But
I mean, I can show you what Jason
Yeah.
wrote.
Boy,
You gotta get it in the context of how you phrased.
here's what I'd like to see, we obviously don't want to have, open a Pandora's box by having more than just one
Right.
dwelling per quarter. On the other hand, I hear your sense of outrage over whether this is fair or not, and I think we have an obligation as a board of the county to treat people fairly. It's hard to make a decision right now for me without hearing your side of it and documented. I've got yours. I'd like us to postpone this for a moment or a week or whatever it takes for you to get your act together to explain why we shouldn't do this, and it's out of a sense of fairness.
Well, I guess my explanation is in the board packet.
Well,
in terms of-
the problem I have is that a variance was granted for a dwelling at one point by the county for this property. And so there's a sense of honor in terms of not only me as a board member, but the county that says we need to honor the things that we've done in the past.
Understood.
And we granted a variance on page 15. We granted a variance, the county granted a variance for
A shop with a living.
For a
with
shop and a
bathroom
dwelling.
in it.
No, it says to build a dwelling and a shop. So that tells me that they've already, that particular property variances run with the land, no matter who owns it.
It's, was that,
Within the year. Yeah.
was that before the property line or the quarter lines were?
Irregardless, we
The variance was granted.
already have determined that they would be in violation. Because
are,
they
no
would be
matter
the
what.
second one.
Yeah.
But at one point, the county granted a variance for a dwelling on that property. And I'm very uncomfortable with not honoring what the county did previously.
Well, I've got a question though, too. When you bought that, did you have it surveyed? Did you have an attorney, advising you
It was surveyed already.
already? You
When-
didn't get it surveyed.
No, there was an existing survey. I think he had surveyed.
I included that with the
Okay.
Yeah.
packet.
With the legal
Um,
descriptions.
Did you have an attorney?
Obviously, there was a closing attorney, and right at the meeting, the attorney, the realtor, the prior owner said, this is buildable. They turned over all the variance all these documents we have and said, don't let the county tell you it's not buildable, because it is. That's exactly what they said. And that's not why I'm here, but and the frustrating part is I bought this and probably paid more than market because I thought it was buildable, so I'm out that money, okay, but property values went up, okay. But it was the misleading before I incurred thousands of dollars worth of costs that really has me frustrated. I mean, I'm okay if there's a compromise in this. If that building shouldn't be built there, okay, then let me just expand the footprint of the shop, I'm not saying living quarters, but at least create some room where I can, put a TV and a regular sink in, that type of thing. And somebody should be responsible for all the money that was paid out based on being told you were the only one in the quarter.
We don't have the authority to do that.
Did you take that information to Marty when you were dealing with him? Did you say, here's the information I got when I bought this?
Oh, yeah.
Be assured.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the application, so that variance that I had was included in the
Yeah,
application.
it was all brought.
Is there anything else on that property that you could build that you're not on the same quarter?
Yes, but it would be a quarter mile back, so it's cost prohibitive. It's a driveway, well, I have well and septic already. I got a driveway. So it's driveway, electricity, well, septic, and I can't pick up the shop and move it. So it's cost prohibitive. There's no way we're going to.
Any
do that.
other variances other than the this property that are required for the property you're building? Setbacks from the property lines or anything like that?
No, we have them all measured out, as far as I understand.
The 50 foot. The 50
With
foot
the setbacks of the proposed.
of the proposed building.
I think it's mainly just the quarter is the.
I mean, that's what I would, that's why I was asking Nick, but
Yeah.
I mean, depending
the
on
more
how
I read into
place a
that,
few things, but those can easily be adjusted.
the variance of the application before, it says dwelling. It does very stiffly say dwelling in a shop, page 15 of our packet.
And they were under the
Condition-
impression,
Variance permit is granted for and is limited to the following conditions. Variance of 15 feet to meet the required 50-foot setback from the north property line. Variance of 70 feet to meet the required quarter-mile setback from the existing feedlot to build a dwelling and shop in Jefferson Township.
And
does.
so saying two
Affected
things.
parcel. Abstract of land is legally described as, and it's a legal description. That's where I have a problem with saying they can't do it, go ahead.
Is there something less than a dwelling that you would be willing to deal with?
I would if someone was gonna reimburse me for my $3,000 worth of engineering and design that I have
You're
in the
talking
other.
the wrong board.
No,
We don't have the authority.
I get that. I understand what you're saying.
Again, is what
I'll
he's
have to
saying.
start again and incur all those costs again. So,
Yeah,
Here's the problem. What you're asking us to do is none of us want to do because it would create a precedent that we don't want to have to deal with in the future or have to go back because this is kind of an ironclad rule. If there's something that we could come up with that would satisfy you and also avoid the quarter rule.
I would be happy to expand the shop, but I was already told I can't do that. So,
It still
and
goes back to the definition of quarter.
Yeah. No.
What if you didn't do a dwelling?
That's the definition of a dwelling.
It's already been granted by.
That's my
your
question.
expertise. That's
that's right.
what I've seen.
What if we allowed you to expand the shop and create some? What if he did some, well, you've got a septic system and well for the shop. What if he did some interior kinds of things for the shop that allowed him to use it on occasion? Like a cabin or something.
You know, I mean, it's up to you. You can certainly,
We can do that.
yeah, I mean, it's within your authority to do.
And I
could go after non-conformance. And that's part of.
I
That's what the
do
board is-
appreciate that, don't get me wrong, but since I bought all the drawings. And it specifically says I have a right. I mean, it kind of does there. I'm not sure why I would back off of that unless someone says, okay, I'm gonna reimburse you for your thousands of dollars you spent already.
You know,
My fear here is if we start granting, if we have that authority as a board. Start granting 2 houses, quarter section. We could be meeting 4 nights a week. Because I myself have 10 or 12 40s that I could build on, and if I could get 2 houses on each 40. I could probably quit farming and sell some 40s.
So
That's my fear, if we're doing anything illegal here, so that's where I'm going. I'm not saying it's
I think it's
illegal,
code.
according to the zoning.
Yeah.
And there's different circumstances
so
here probably,
my
but
question is, what happens if you have a house already existing before zoning? Because there are several around that I know
A lot of record.
of. There are multiple ones. In fact, my neighbors have 2 houses on the same parcel.
Say that again.
Yeah, we do have enough.
They're prior to zoning.
Yeah, or, there's a period of time in which a second farm dwelling was a permitted use in, it wasn't within the mobile home like it is now.
Okay, that's
That-
part of it, yeah.
Yeah, but
I
then
understand that one.
years, so there are certain circumstances that you can find that here.
And,
but not-
and when you go by the quarter, I've seen some where there's a house on one side of the road and they're both in the quarter, two houses on the same quarter.
Yeah.
On opposite side of the road.
1967.
So I,
But this here was a permit on this one, so this wasn't before you
This is-
needed a permit to build.
I do have a question. Since there's a dwelling on it, and I have a legal document that says it's legal, do you have authority to say I can't? I mean, it's a legitimate question. I'm not,
Well,
Right,
there's
trying to
two
be-
ways to look at it, that you're saying the question of do you have the authority to exist, or do you have the authority to expand?
well, I'll just renovate. I mean,
So,
I'll do a complete renovation of this thing. It won't be recognized, but I mean,
So,
As you get into section 9(2)(3), there is a discussion on exist. And then there's a discussion on expand.
I go back, I'm not even sure why we're having this discussion because of the due diligence I did ahead. And two, I actually have a legal document that says I can build it. And going back to your point, I don't understand why we're having this.
I don't know what we could have done differently. to
Yeah,
help this
I mean,
position.
you said I jumped the gun. I got a legal document that says I can. I
Get a
I don't
conversation.
understand
let
that.
me try one more here.
Yep,
Okay, the variance. Newcomb County Board of Adjustment variance order of July 20th of 2013. Highlighted, underlined. 15-foot variance, blah, blah. For an existing. Setback from an existing feedlot, where is it? To build a dwelling and a shop.
Mhm.
So. Can we call what's there a dwelling?
Right, when this,
Well, because,
when the sewer system was applied for, it only applied for a shop. There was no,
but this,
Shop with a bathroom, correct? Isn't that what you said?
That's what
The
it said.
permit
It
said
said.
a shop with a bathroom was on the permit?
so,
Well, and that's where we're
But-
taking. It is illegal.
why, right here, it says you can build one.
yeah,
What
but what was supposed to be permanent?
What's the permit?
what was that here then?
The variance, order,
Yeah.
authorized.
I just don't have that.
What was permitted? The septic runs to the shop. So that's all he
What
did.
it's-
was the mobile home that's there now, this dwelling, can that be considered a dwelling?
In my opinion, it's representation. Well,
How is it illegal?
How is it referenced? I don't follow that. Says prior owner had an illegal dwelling. He was replacing it with a legal dwelling. Well, that's not my issue.
The variance was given.
that's what we're coming. My predecessor's decision, and in the this, we don't find a permit to say that there is any existing dwelling, and I also. We can't permit a second house in a quarter.
Well, you can't. They can't.
No,
They can't.
It's considered.
And I'm not sure why you're arguing so hard against it.
One house.
I was encouraged to bring it to
That's
here.
been the rule for 20 years.
I was encouraged.
And reaffirmed with the comprehensive land you plan.
I was encouraged by Marty to bring this
Yeah, we
because he said, I have a case and now his office is,
It's your only-
and you said I have a strong case. My goodness, Marty. I'm sorry, did I say that? I don't believe I said that.
Amelia has the floor. Let her talk.
Well, she's making claims that I have no idea why she's making them. If I have a problem with person, I'm
Can we
sorry.
let her talk?
That's what we're trying to get.
But if you do have an issue with that, you can take that up with the proper department, but that is outside their authority, and we can sit here and argue all
Good.
night.
I didn't think I was gonna be attacked by
But-
your office, Marty, when I came here.
But
I'm sorry.
Because
We're trying to get this.
I'm not trying to work it out.
asserting that there was a previous variance order that allowed a dwelling, it says specifically a shop and a dwelling to be built on this property. And so based on that information and based on our conversations with Mr. Herrick, we move forward to put a dwelling on it. So that's why we're stuck here. We put a lot of time, money and energy into this dwelling.
Another key. In terms of, we don't get real specific in terms of what your design has to look like.
Great.
In terms of that part, so how you, to what level, I mean. Things can come in before, they don't necessarily.
That attach a design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, in terms of the.
Did you tell me that? Did you tell us that we could have just a hand sketch and then have to hire someone for a design?
That's.
You're the expert.
Okay, so-
Well, you're layman.
Builders. We did the best we could. We tried to have all the information ready and available.
Yep.
And including this copy of the variance, including a quick scan copy of our survey that was done. We tried to do everything that we could to be well prepared because we weren't expecting any problems.
I will say, Julie, you did a fantastic job on your. You did have everything.
My intent to make sure it wasn't.
Well, I've got a question. You got the variance. What are the chances they built without a permit or the permit was? For what, I mean, generally, I would guess if you got a variance. That means you built,
They just hauled a mobile home in there. That's all they did.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
They
it's-
hauled a mobile
and-
home in there,
yep.
set it up on blocks. And didn't get a permit, and that's my guess.
or it didn't get recorded. It was-
Here, I think is the key right here, where it says they gave a variance to build a dwelling and shop in Jefferson Township, but when they came in for the permit, they did not specify in the permit what it was. Read that again, what the permit was, will you?
Where are you reading?
Page 15.
Page 15.
15 is the reference to dwelling and then the shop.
But the permit was, it didn't specify, the permit didn't specify a dwelling. And
Page 15 has the variance order that makes reference to that. Page 18 in the application, so what are you building? Flat type of structure, and it says shop garage. Then you go to the actual zoning permit that is made reference to, and it says build shop garage 18 by 30, change to
Where is that?
42 by 18, that's
page
page 1.
18,
Page 8, it says. Basically.
That's
page
where I
15,
think
18 and 20.
I think that's where the misconception is,
So
right there.
there's-
But the variance takes precedence over a permit. A
No,
permit is
no.
just follow up.
We grant the variances, but the permit is actually done in the office, the building permit.
Right, but the variance was granted by the county
But it's only good for.
Sorry,
a
say
year.
that.
and a dwelling.
And if they didn't build the dwelling within the year, the variance is no longer valid.
The permit's no longer valid.
The variance was with.
But now, again, I go back to. You have an office. And none of this was explained to us. Before we spent that money. So again, if that would have been the information we got when we first. Came to these folks. It wouldn't have been an issue. I would have said, well, okay, what can we do? Okay, the problem was. That is not what we were told.
I don't disagree. Unfortunately. We can't, we're not in a position to reimburse you. We're not in a position to cover your costs. We're here to make a decision about
Yep.
whether in fact. You have authority to build on that parcel.
Yeah, and you do have authority to grant that permit.
It's a use.
Is it used for?
And I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, I'm kind of wondering, use permit enough to go through the hearing.
Well, it's what legal counsel said they do, right?
I asked, I could try to bring it up, I don't think I have it in front of me here, that basically we asked, you know, can relief be given for that? And the external counsel's comment was something to the effect of that is at the Board of Adjustments
Discretion.
And
ability.
I think that has to be depending on the situation.
Oh, completely.
I don't think we can just go and say, you know,
No, it's.
I'm gonna, you know,
It's.
I got an acre with a house on it, but I'm gonna. It can't, just let me do it.
I wouldn't have brought this to you if everything kind of moved forward as it probably should have. As far as having us have the information beforehand. But by the time this came up, we were so far into the process. Again, relying on, we're laymen. We relied on the experts.
Marty.
Documented proof is. We have to base. I have to base
Okay,
my
great.
decision on documented. proof.
Go ahead.
Marty, on number 6 of the findings. The request is not a use variance, which tells me that we don't have the authority. To change. A use variance or change the use with a variance. And I read that somewhere. In addition to when you look at that. The request is not a use variance. That tells me that if it is a use variance, I don't think we have the authority to
No,
change.
that's the question. Underneath it, the
Right.
staff analysis,
Yeah,
this
so-
is a use variance.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that we have the authority to change a use variance. That's my opinion. And I guess before I go any further, I think we need a legal opinion on it to see if we have the authority to do
So
that.
the real,
Pardon me?
That it is used very.
I think.
yeah, I don't think we do. So it really comes down to then, how much of a dwelling is there? What is there? What's there?
Again, if it's not dwelling, somebody give me a definition.
I don't know.
I don't know what else it would fit in.
There's a lot of things that aren't.
Can we respond to public, our speakers? Wayne, go ahead, you got the board.
This isn't the first time this situation came up in Houston County. I had a property where they built next to me. But when the salesman, the realtor sold property. He sold my property too. And when it came down, when they didn't survey it. And I told them right away, you gotta survey it. And when they did survey it. You know, then I got my property back. But they had a house, they had to move the house, they had to move everything. So this is a case where they're going after the wrong people. The attorneys that showed you that you had a legal survey. Are the ones, they have errors and omissions insurance. And you can go back and you can get all your money back.
I understand what you're saying. But right now, my recourse is with this board.
No, it's not.
You
Because.
know, I'm not gonna argue over it. I mean,
No, you don't think about this. Cause I went and told those people right away, I says, I think it's a good idea if you survey this property. And they said, no, we don't have to survey nothing, we're buying it. Okay, when it came back, when they finally did the survey, they came to me, they had their gates on mine, they had everything on mine. And then I had to sign an easement to get all their electrical stuff off on my property onto theirs. And I did it, because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, to tell you the truth, if they would have surveyed it, those people that bought that property next to mine lost over 50 acres. And to tell you the truth, that's why you do a legal survey before you buy the property.
Oh, there was one done.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, we do. We have.
Okay, if you have a legal survey.
Yeah.
You go back, the entity that did that legal survey or the attorney that you hired. And he will cover all your costs.
Well,
Appreciate that idea.
yeah, but I'm not making the
People,
connection.
They can't grant this, because if they grant one. There's gonna be 1,000
And,
coming.
and I put out there a compromise, what I'm willing to do, and I know everyone's saying, well, we can't cover costs, but legally, you could, well, they can say, I'm an advisor to municipalities, I know legally they could cover my costs. They probably don't want to set that precedent, I get that, I totally understand it, but you also have to understand that I acted on advice by extension of this board. And, you know, Mari, I know you probably don't want to say, okay, I told you that, but you told me that, and I would appreciate it if you just said that. Instead of saying, well, I'd have to look. That's an easy way just not to answer it.
It was a miscommunication one way or another, and it sounds like we're trying to find fault. I don't care.
No.
If it needs to be resolved,
Yeah.
we can look at it, we can say, we're gonna call that a dwelling. It's stretching the imagination probably. We're gonna call that a dwelling and we'll go through with this. And if we're not willing to do this, I think then we gotta get the attorneys involved, and I mean, we can't do this. I mean, short of saying that is a dwelling, then we'll move forward with that.
So if I itemize my expenses, that expense will cost you a fraction of an
We can
attorney.
talk all night. We can't worry about your expenses.
I understand,
That-
my point is
Don't
the
even bring up
practical,
the expenses anymore.
yeah.
You have them back.
Okay, we have another comment from the back here, Greg Myrie.
They should all vote on it. Never goes through by. You can go to this report and appeal. That's the district judgment.
What are we voting on?
Give them the variance.
I recommend we deny this variance. I'm gonna make a motion that we deny the variance based on the fact that it's a use variance.
Can we go through the?
We can't, that's,
All right, let's go through the findings. Wait a minute, anybody from the back, any public person wanna speak up?
I think we should also highlight the comments that came.
Yeah, would
that
you?
were in the- Yeah, letter.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, your letters. Okay.
all right, let's go with.
Okay, findings. The variance request is in harmony with the intent and purpose of official control. Staff analysis. The variance request does not meet the density control system put in place by the comprehensive land use plan and the zoning ordinance. The density control of one dwelling per quarter section is exceeded. The site has an existing setback variance for a food lot. And I'll do a roll call on this. Ken Anderson,
I guess we'll say no.
Larry Haffner,
No,
Wayne Ronigan,
no,
Franklin Hahn,
No,
Ken Bister.
no.
Number two, there are practical difficulties in complying with the official controls, and the proposed use of the property is reasonable. Economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties. Staff analysis, the applicants have approximately 45 acres in multiple quarter sections. The applicant believes building in the open quarter section would be cost prohibitive based on the length of the road and utilities. Ken Anderson,
I guess I tend to say no, because we shouldn't consider the cost factors.
Larry Haffner,
no,
Wayne Ronigan,
no,
Franklin Hahn,
no,
Ken Bister.
No.
Number two. Variance requests are due to special conditions or circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner. Staff analysis, the owner has not created any nonconformities. The outstanding questions regarding the developability of the parcel were pre-existing prior to their purchase. Ken Anderson,
I'll agree with that. Yes.
Larry Haffner,
yes,
Wayne Ronigan,
yes,
Franklin Hahn,
yes,
Ken Bister.
I agree.
Number four, the variances cannot be alleviated by a reasonable method other than a variance And the minimum variance which would alleviate the practical difficulty is sought. Staff analysis, the cost to construct the road to the open quarter section may be prohibitive, and a variance is the only viable alternative. Ken Anderson,
Would say no, because we're not supposed to consider the cost of the alternatives.
Harry Hafner,
No,
Wayne Ronigan,
no,
Franklin Hahn,
No,
Ken Visker.
No.
Number 5, the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality nor substantially impair property values or the public health, safety, or welfare in the vicinity. Staff analysis, farm dwellings are commonly found in the agricultural district. The proposal will not differ from other surrounding rural residential properties and should not negatively affect property value, public health, safety, or welfare, or others in the vicinity. The proposal will likely improve the property values in the area. Ken Anderson,
I'm probably gonna vote no, because we're adding another building in quarter, and that can affect property values and affect others.
Larry Hafner,
yes,
Wayne Ronigan,
no,
Franklin Hahn,
no,
Ken Visker.
Yes,
Number 6, the request is not a use variance and shall not have the effect of allowing any use that is not allowed in the zoning district. Permit a lower degree of flood protection than the regulatory flood protection elevation, or permit standards lower than those required by state law. Staff analysis, this is a use variance exceeding the single dwellings in the same quarter section. Ken Anderson,
I would say I disagree with that request. It's a use variance because changing it to a residential proximity, so no.
Larry Hafner,
no,
Wayne Ronigan. No. Franklin Hahn,
no,
Ken Visker.
I'm not sure what I'm at, what you're asking
Okay,
us to
all right.
say here.
Well,
Are you
basically,
saying you want us to, are we,
okay, do you,
are we
the question
agreeing?
is do you feel this is a use variance?
I do.
Then,
And I agree with you. That's what
oh,
I,
wait,
I think
all
we're
right, so
confused
you
about.
wanna go back and re-ask the question again?
Yes,
do I think this is a use
All right, well, then
variance?
let me read it. I'll read it.
Okay.
it's whether we agree with the staff analysis.
No,
Right?
no,
Oh,
no,
it's not.
no,
It's,
No,
staff
you're-
analysis is the supplemental question.
it's a supplement, if, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so, all right, I'll read the question. Number 6, the request is not a use variance, it shall not have the effect of allowing any use that is not allowed in the zoning district. Permit a lower degree of flood protection than the regulatory flood protection elevation, or permit standards lower than those required by state law. Staff analysis was, this is a use variance exceeding the single dwellings in the same quarter section, but again, the question relates back to the first part.
Right, and so my answer would be,
And so Ken Anderson,
it is a use variance, so I say no, and I say the reason
All right.
it is a changing of the zoning.
exactly that way. Larry Happ,
No,
Wayne Ronigan, Franklin Hahn,
no,
Ken Visker. No. Okay, so. All right, well, those are the findings.
So, as far as, so that means it's rejected.
well, we haven't.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I mean,
Sorry.
I'm not familiar with this
I don't
process.
mean to cut you off, but it is.
No,
It's their.
I get it, I get it.
I make a motion, we approve the findings.
Second.
Second. to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
I,
Okay, and based on the findings, we can't approve the. My understanding.
Any further discussion?
Based on the findings, we cannot approve a permit.
Did we get any comments from the public other than what was spoken here tonight?
Yes.
Did we get any in writing?
Yes.
Did you read them?
thank you, Franklin.
Okay, first one is from Ann Bolton.
When we do, yeah. Okay,
From Ann Bolton, it says Jefferson Township Board of Supervisors met Monday, July 17th, and discussed the above named building application. It is the feeling of the Jefferson Township Board that the proposed building violates the quarter rule of Houston County, since there is already a home within the subject quarter, and would set a precedent for the further violation of this rule. Also, there is concern about the slope of the driveway for any permanent home in that location. Dale Newman, Chair, and Paul for the clerks. That's one of them. Next one was from Pam Snodgrass. It says, this is in response to the application for a variance requested by Jeff and Julie Seeley regarding their property in Jefferson Township. I am the treasurer for Jefferson Township, and I did obtain the following information from Houston County that I shared with the Jefferson Town Board at our monthly meeting on Monday, July 17, 2023. Requested variance states that in 2013, a building permit was granted for a dwelling and shop building. Copies were shared of Jeff Eastman's permits from the 2013 and zoning permit number 4132, granted permission to build a shop/garage, not a dwelling. He also received a permit number 262 for a variance setback from a feedlot. In the June 20th, 2013 minutes of the Board of Adjustment, Jeff Eastman did comment that he would like to put up full shed and within a 900 square foot dwelling. And though the verbiage in the meeting minutes may have used the term dwelling, his actual zoning permit was given to build a shop garage. Seeley's also claimed that in 2013, the survey line showed that his dwelling would be the only one within the specific quarter, but they believe the county moved the survey lines. The Liz Please Danielson home did have a survey performed on 3/10/06, which clearly shows her home is indeed in the quarters in question. The survey was received at Houston County on 6/30/06. I feel that a dwelling request differs greatly from the shop garage zoning permit that was granted in 2013, and there is clearly an existing home on the quarter in question. Pam Snodgrass. Okay, and then the last one is from Tony Pearson, July 13th, 2023. To whom it may concern, I received a letter today for a variance to build a house on the same 40 acres that a house clearly already exists. I'm a little puzzled as to why this application is even being considered. The zoning ordinance in Houston County clearly states that there cannot be more than one house on a 40-acre section. This ordinance has always been black and white, strictly enforced to the tune of making people move, tear down, vacate, and/or not allowing occupancy of houses that were in violation of this ordinance. Per this ordinance, you cannot build a house if there is another house on the same 40-acre sections. One house per 40-acre section. Okay, yeah, on the same one out. Okay. It has always been so strictly enforced, which makes me wonder what has changed to this law ordinance, and if there have not been any changes, why is this variance even being considered? I wonder if the county really wants to open this can of worms, consider the people who have been denied building permits because there was already one house on a 40-acre section. I believe the floodgates would open wide with a lot of very angry people that were denied building permits in the past, and a lot of people wanting to build more than one house on a 40-acre section. I have about 4 spots in my farm that I would love to build, but can't because there's another house within those 40-acre sections. And even though I own the land and would like to build it myself, I am grateful this ordinance so that Houston County can stay country. I find it sad when I drive through Iowa and Wisconsin, and I see house after house popping up in what used to be beautiful farmland, looking through small little birds in the middle of nowhere. Do we really want this to happen to Houston County? I sure don't. I like looking out my window and not seeing other house for a quarter mile or so in any direction. I surely don't want someone on my back door. After all, isn't that why people move out of cities or towns and into the country? To live in wide open spaces and not be clustered in little groupings that look like small villages. Please consider what the consequences and the impact of passing this one variance could have on our beautiful Houston County. On a side note, I believe the previous owner may have sold the property because he could not build a house on it. And I know of another person who was interested in buying but decided not to when he too discovered he could not build a house on the property. Did the Seeleys not check into whether this was a buildable site prior to buying the property? Sincerely, Tammy Pierce. So, those are the 3.
Okay, thank you.
And then we also have Ronald Coleman call me and say he did not object. We'll do the 4th.
All right, is there any more discussion on the board?
I think by rule, if we don't have the right findings,
The findings are right.
we don't even need a motion to deny.
Right.
Is that correct?
Well, I think we have to make a.
So then will we,
I think if you're gonna deny, I think you have to.
I move we deny the variance.
Okay, there's a motion to deny the variance. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I want a roll call.
Okay,
Roll call,
roll call to deny. Ken Anderson.
Aye.
Ken Vista,
Aye.
Wayne Ronigan,
Aye.
Terry Hapner,
I,
Franklin.
Aye, but I want to make a notation in there. The reason that I voted for the denial is because the fact that the building permit was not recorded as the variance that was allowed.
Very well put. Okay, I guess it's denied.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know, following up on what I can do out there. Who do I talk to?
You already sent me. I'll follow up.
Well, and my concern is, I went down that road once before.
Document everything.
Well, I have notes from our meetings, but they're my notes, so.
Well, my
ask for that.
suggestion, and I don't have anything to say about what the staff does, but my suggestion would be if you come in, you have one other person
Right. We will have,
with Martin
we will have,
to take notes and
we will have two people there.
And so it's all documented and so there isn't a misunderstanding.
Process is new
Okay.
to us, so.
With that, this meeting is over.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Receiving is denied. Was there any discussion for our meetings?
I think.
We gotta finish up, we gotta have a discussion with input and discussion.
All right.
So you know, that
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, and you.
Yeah, we adjourn. We all well.
Yeah, we're just doing a little discussion.
So they have.
That's supposed to be done.
Oh, no, that's not.
You want us to read
That's what.
adjourn? Okay, group.
Larry and Ken Vistor made second. He seconded.
And everybody agreed.
And Ken Anderson third.
Yeah.